What does the term data mean, or what could the term data mean? Gary?
A collective measurement, a collective set of measurements.
Okay. So give me an example of something that we might collect data on.
Maybe the population of the world.
Okay. So there would be one example that we would survey and collect data on. What do you think?
We could collect data on stuff like this for the amount of people that have certain things. Like we could collect data about that type of stuff.
Give me something about what does thing mean? What could it represent?
For like looks of personalities and stuff, like the amount of people from China, the amount of people like from different races. We could also get that data for like immigrants and for people who are original.
I have some examples of graphs that I'm going to show you. Probably 2, maybe 3. That's okay. I don't mind. So the first is, what kinds of graphs do we use? Then the second question that I'm going to have you put on a big piece of chart paper is, what do we put on graphs to help communicate our results? So on those graphs, here, I'll give you another marker. Could be a chart.
Okay,
It's
I've got
anything
ideas for
that
a
deals
chart
with
then.
how do we visually display data that we visually display information.
Yeah, just go.
Like her idea. You can't say those things.
We can draw. I was going to talk about the
Does it matter how neat it is
the amount
in a
of
graph? Does it matter how neat the bars are? What if the ones I showed you were halfway in between numbers? Did it help having different colors? Okay, so I'm trying to get you to think of what are some of the commonalities you see in terms of types of graphs that we've used? What are some of the most common or popular graphs that you've seen? Angel?
Circle graph.
Yep, our circle graphs is being the example that I showed. What were some of the other ones?
A line graph.
A line graph, so that was the third option that I showed. A bar graph, so that was the second. What were some of the ones that you didn't see today that you came up with?
T-chart.
A T-chart or a tally chart, definitely. You can put yours over here, Tiago. What are some of the other ones that you have? Okay, so a timeline visually displaying data. Definitely, that helps communicate. Gary?
We have a radar graph, a Google graph, and a stock market graph.
Okay, so tell me about the stock market graph.
It's basically comparing how much if the stock market drops or raises.
Okay, so that's specific. It's called a broken line graph when it goes up and down, but you're describing an example of what would go with that. Graphs to help us communicate that information. Alifa? Titles. What is usually the title about?
Like what's the graph is about?
Good, so what question was asked? Okay, what else? Aaron?
The percentages, like how much people like this, how much people like that.
Okay, some form of information telling you how many people you've asked, whether it be a percentage or a number. Liam?
The objects of what's actually being like let's say 5 people voted for this, 5 people voted for that, like actually with this and that order.
Okay, so having some sort of categories. So we saw with the favorite type of movies, we had drama, we had comedy, so something to choose from.
The Y and X titles.
Good, so what's running up and down, which is what we call our Y, and what's running across side to side. What else should graphs have that you might not have thought about? Hanan, I talked to your group about this.
The colors to differentiate different.
Okay, a lot of things that they added is those had different colors that help pop and make data stand out a little differently.
the legend.
Okay,
Like explaining what color equals what.
good. So we had a legend that connected to what Hanan was saying. What else? Keegan?
Oh, never mind.
Okay. Should a graph be neat?
Yes.
Why? If it's all over the place, how well does that help communicate what they're showing, Tiago? If I had lines going back and forth and up and down and all over the place, is it going to be easy for you to read what the graph is really trying to communicate?